Okay, supplies for the flip-flop beach. Okay, we're going to do some paint. I have a raw sienna, which is going to be my sand, white, blue, and I have colors for the flip-flop. You can have any colors that you want for your flip-flop. Use them in any order. Paper towel, cup with water, 2 paintbrushes, one a little bit bigger, one a little bit pointier, and then a canvas. My name is Melissa from Paint Party LI, and I will be painting along with you step by step today to create the flip-flop beach. All right, first thing you're going to do is wet your canvas. So you're going to take your bigger brush with a little bit of water, and you're just going to brush a nice thin coat from the top to the bottom, and this is only if you're using the canvas to paint on. Nice thin coat all the way from the top to the bottom. You don't have to worry about getting every last little piece, just enough to give it a nice thin coat. What that'll help do is prime it for when we get started with the paint. All right, so we're gonna use the little brush now. You can put your big brush down. Just dip your little brush in the water for a second, just to get it a little bit wet, and then dry it off on the paper towel a little bit. You don't want it dripping, but you just want the bristles a little bit damp. Okay, first thing we're going to do is grab a little bit of blue paint, and we're going to make the shoreline where the water is coming up onto the beach. Now, bottom piece over here is going to be sand, top piece over here is going to be water. So when I do this, I'm going to give it just a few little waves, and it comes up, and I'm leaving that corner, the bottom piece is going to also be the sand color. Okay, so I'm going to do that one more time now, smaller, and I'm going to follow the same waves. This is my smaller brush with a little bit of blue paint, and I'm just going to follow it just like this, the same pattern that I just did right here. Okay, and then I'm going to put my little brush in the water. Switching over to my bigger brush. It should look somewhere around like that. Okay, I'm going to dip that in a little bit of water. I'm going to grab some white and some blue paint. Now, I'm going to brush everything up on an angle like this. So when I get started, I'm going to start here, and I'm just brushing everything. We can go over it, but right now I want to go up on an angle all the way up to the corner. And you'll see mine dripped a little bit, and that's okay. You're going to have yours flat on the table, so yours won't be dripping like that. Okay, so I'm dragging it up to the corner. I am going to go back on this with more paint, but right now I'm just getting started with the first layer. So I'm brushing it just like that, and I want to be able to see the brush strokes, so make sure that you're doing them up on an angle just like this, up towards the corner. Okay, I'm going to reload my brush and do the second part. So again, I'm grabbing a little bit of white and some blue on my brush, and this time I'm going to do the same thing, same angle, and I'm going real close to the line that I did there. It's okay if you touch it. Again, same angle the whole way. I'm going to leave a little space in there because we're going to put some white paint in there. And I'm just going in again, loading my brush, some white and some blue paint, and going all the way down. Again, everything is on that same angle. So I have it like on a 45-degree angle, which is kind of just going towards the corner and off the side here. Now you want enough paint on your brush so that when you brush it in there, you're not getting a very speckly look on your canvas, so that you're filling in everything with the water and the paint on your brush. And if it's not wet enough, then grab a little bit more paint and a little bit more water on your brush if you need. and just go back in there. Okay, we're gonna go back over this in a moment. I'm just starting off with that. So I'm gonna clean that brush off, tapping it down to the bottom of the cup, getting all the paint out just very gently. And then I'm going to dry it off on my paper towel. I'm switching colors, so I really want to make sure that I dab it and get all the color out. Okay, so now we're going to mix a little bit of that raw sienna, that golden color. Any color that you're using for the sand, you're going to mix a little white and some of that color there, giving it a nice light sand color. And I'm going to go close but not touch to the water that I just painted. I'm gonna go in between there, just kind of give myself a line, and then I'm going to paint everything below that and next to it. So again, I have a nice amount of white in there. I want it to be fairly light. Okay, so I'm going to fill in everything. You can go around the side edges of your canvas also if you want to, and you can do that with your blue too. Okay, again, so I have a nice light shade. If you're getting a real dark shade, you want to add some more white into it. Okay, and I'm going to fill in everything that was on my left side of the water. Okay, so you want it nice and smooth, nice thin paint. If you have a ton of paint on there, take your brush across, just brush it across and smooth it out, okay? You want a nice thin coat. All right, I'm gonna clean off that brush. And I'm gonna add some more blue up into the water section. So when I do that, I'm going back in with some blue and some white on my brush, just a little bit of white, you don't need a ton. Okay, and I do like it streaky on purpose, so I'm purposely not blending it in. I'm just kind of brushing it across with that white and that blue that's on my paintbrush. So it looks like the movement of the water or those little streaky lines in there. Again, you're welcome to go around the outside edges of your canvas if you want to. Remember, this is on an angle also. And I'm gonna go over that front piece of the water also, between the front two pieces of the waves. Again, I just have a little bit of white on my brush and some blue. And then I'm just brushing thin, nice thin coat all the way across, filling all of that in. Okay, again, you can go around the top edges, you can go around your side edges if you want to. And then you're going to clean off that brush. This paint does dry very quickly. It's an acrylic paint. But I'm gonna hit mine with a hairdryer real quick so that we can move on to the next step. So you want this all to be dry for the next step. Now, if you wait 5 minutes, it's going to be dry if you did a nice thin coat. I'm just gonna blow dry it so that I can show you the next step. Okay, so if you decide to blow dry also, it's less than a minute, like 30 seconds of blow drying. You don't need a whole lot for that. You just wanna make sure that it's dry enough so when we start putting the white paint for the surf in there, that it's going to be not completely blending into what you already have there. All right, so I'm going to use the larger brush. I'm going to clean it off and I'm going to dry it off. I'm taking just some white paint, okay? And what I'm going to do is dab it nice and thick, right at the line. Okay, so I have a good amount of white paint on there, really loaded my brush up, and I'm going to dab it all the way in here. Just do one wave at a time. So I'm loading a good amount of white paint all in there. Now, you don't need to clean the brush. What you're gonna do is, remember that same angle that we went on, you're gonna drag it up very gently with hardly touching it. Okay, so the paint that's already there, you're going to take on your brush and just kind of flick it up very gently on that same angle that we painted all that blue paint in there, right? So it'll look like the water is rushing in towards the sand. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. Just dabbing white paint. Remember, you want your blue to be dry for this, and your sand color, so that when you go in there, it doesn't make a total mixture there. You want it to be pretty separate and a nice clean white. Okay, so I'm dabbing right over the line of where those two colors meet. Again, I'm using a generous amount of paint on my brush. Dabbing all the way in there. Okay, just like that. Now, while it's still wet, what you want to do is take your brush. You don't have to take any of the paint off of it. Whatever you have on there is fine. I'm going to drag it very gently, kind of just flicking it. You see I'm flicking it very gently in that same direction that I did all those blue streaks with the water. So it's consistent with the same flow of the water going all the way across. All right, when you have that done, you're going to clean off your brush. Okay, so once you clean off that bigger brush, you're going to leave it in the water. We're switching over to the smaller brush now. Okay, so the pointier one, I'm just going to make sure it's nice and clean and dry it off. I'm going to start my flip-flops in here, and what I'm going to do is have them here and here, kind of towards the corner of the canvas. I'm going to use a lime green, and when I do that, I'm going to mix a little yellow with some green. If you have one of the kits already, this will be mixed for you. Okay, so I just mixed a little yellow and some green together just to kind of make it a nice lime green. I'm going to use my small brush. Now that I'm drawing something on there with my paintbrush, I'm going to hold it real close to the bristles on the metal to give me a nice steady hand with it, like I'm writing with a pen or a pencil. And now I'm going to draw the shape. So when I do the flip-flop shape, I'm going to do the rounded top part of the toe down to the heel, just like that. And I'm going to give it another one right next to it over here, kind of just angled out a little bit. So one's this way, one's this way. Okay, and I'm just doing the outline of the bottom part for now. Once you are good with the shape of that, you can tweak it a little bit. You're going to just do a nice thin coat, and you can make these whatever color you want. Any of the colors that you have there is totally fine. Okay, filling in just like this. Okay, nice thin coat. You're gonna let that dry. In the meantime, we'll work on putting a little starfish over in the corner. Okay, so I'm taking my little brush, cleaning it off really well, drying it off. I'm going to take a little white paint, and I'm going to use just the tip of the brush, which means I don't want to press down. I want to just do it very gently. And I'm going to start to make a star. When I do this, keep in mind that the edge of the star should be a little bit rounded and not so super pointy the way you would draw a regular star. Okay, and I'm just going to fill that in. Depending on how much room you have when you did your water and your sand, you may need to put it somewhere else, and that's totally fine. Or you can leave it out or put it down here. I'm going to do a little clamshell down on the bottom. Again, white paint on the tip of the brush, holding it real close to the bristles. And I'm going to make this kind of clamshell shape, which means just kind of like an upside down U with a little piece on the bottom like a shell. And now I'm going to add lines to this. Okay, and I'm going to gently fill them in. Making it a little rounded at the top part of the shell too, so you can see where those little sections are. Okay, very gently with a light amount of white paint, almost watered down a little bit. You don't want it super thick. Okay, once you have that in there, you're gonna dip your tiny brush back into some of the sand color, and you're gonna come back in and just kind of highlight those little lines in between where the shell lines are. Okay, we're also gonna clean off the brush and add a little shadow to everything. So while these dry, before we put the straps on, I'm going to clean off my brush, my tiny brush. I'm gonna take a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm going to use just a little bit of that sand color that hasn't been mixed. So that raw sienna there, I have a little bit of water on my brush. And now I'm going to give everything a little bit of a shadow. So pick one side. Let's pretend the sun is up here shining. So that means everything on the far side will get a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to go next to it with that same color, giving it a little bit of a shadow next to everything. And I'll do it on the far side of the starfish too. And then the same thing with the shell. So it looks like it has a little bit of shadow to it. While we're at it, we're gonna add a little bit right along the shoreline, so it looks like the water is kind of coming in, and it's got a little bit of depth to it. So again, I have that same color with a little bit of water on there, and I'm just gonna brush it right along the edge here, next to the white. Trying not to smear that white because your white will likely still be wet, and that's okay, it should be. Okay, going all the way along there, and you see how now it looks like it has a little bit of a shadow to it. You can always blur it too a little bit by rubbing your brush back and forth on it. Okay, and then you're going to clean off that brush. We're going to add some straps onto the flip-flops. I'm doing mine with a little pink strap, very summery, green and pink flip-flop. You're welcome to do any color combination you want. Okay, so I'm grabbing a little pink paint on my smaller, pointier brush. And what I'm gonna do is pick a little spot and make a dot kind of down where between it'll go where the toes are. So it's not right up the edge, just go in a little bit. You're gonna put a little dot right there. Now we're going to make kind of a V shape, almost like a wishbone shape. That's upside down. Okay, same thing here. Just like this. Okay, so at this point, you decide, do you want a little design on your flip-flops? Do you want to leave them as is? If you want a design, you can do some stripes, you can do some little polka dots. If you decide to do some polka dots, just pick a color. I'll do mine in white, and I'll just add some little polka dots right onto my flip-flops with my little brush. Just like that. All right, when you're all done, you can take your little brush, put your initials in the bottom corner, any color that you want. I'm gonna use pink. I'm gonna put MD down in the corner. And thanks so much for painting with me today. Hope you enjoyed it.